thank you to the Purposeful Project for inviting me along. I am here to talk about, I'm just going to close the chat so I can actually see my screen. I'm hoping you can all see my screen, right? I'm here to talk about strategic branding for startups, basically the kind of what it is, why you should care about it, and how to go about formulating your own brand strategy, basically. I've got about half an hour of chat to do. Send questions through in the chat and I will go through and try and kind of pick them up at the end. I think if I try and do them as I go, I know what I'm like, I'll over talk and then we'll never get through it. So I want to give you the info first and then I'll try and pick up whatever questions I can at the end. Okay, so first of all, why are you not going down? That's not working. Let's try this. Cool. Why should you listen to me in the first place? Why have the Purposeful Project asked me to come in and talk about that? Well, from a brand perspective, I've got all the official credentials. I started off in kind of marketing and branding 25 years ago. I know it makes me sound like Queen Victoria. I'm not 80, I promise. And I was in real estate initially, doing research, sales roles, development, got into marketing. And then I got into just the fascination of how they could have multiple different estate agencies on the same street without cannibalizing each other. And it just really fascinated me, the whole positioning, the mindset, the why different people choose different brands. And I decided I wanted to be a brand consultant. I'm a brand consultant now because I didn't take no for an answer, which I'm pretty sure is something that most startups resonate with. I spoke to recruitment agents and they all said to me, no way, you've got to have at least a decade of experience if you want to be advising C-suites on anything. I spoke to agencies, most of them said the same. So in the end, I blagged myself a meeting with the MD of an agency I like the look of. And I said, just tell me, what jobs do you have available? And they had a couple of admin jobs doing. I said, I'll do both, as long as you let me monitor and shadow your consultancy team. And at first he laughed me out of the room, told me, you know, you're a marketing manager, you've got a master's in management, you're going to be bored, you'll be gone in 6 months. I said, fine, if I'm gone in 6 months, don't pay me my last month's salary. He was like, okay, so you've got to believe in yourself, right? So we did. We didn't make it to 18 months, which was my kind of, if I get to 18 months and I'm not, you know, you don't think I've got what it takes, we'll shake hands and part ways. After 12 months, I'd done both admin roles. I was shadowing the PR team. I was supporting the business development team. I was supporting the consultancy team, and I was sitting in every board meeting. So at the end of that period, it was like, do you know what? You've earned your spurs. Here's your junior consultancy role. And I stuck at it. I loved it. I did 17 years in agency in London and in Hong Kong, working across Asia. I've worked for clients all around the world, all different shapes, sizes, sectors, everything from tech to retail to property, real estate, finance, education, well-being, you know it, kind of run the gamut of it. So from a branding perspective, that's kind of, I've earned my spurs. But how does that relate to an SME perspective? How do I see things from like being a startup? Well, because I've done it, right? I've tried it myself. I've had a few. What people don't realize about Hong Kong, where I spent 10 years, is that it is a home for entrepreneurs, right? 98% of businesses in Hong Kong are small businesses. Loads of people have side hustles, day jobs in banking, restaurant on the side, or whatever it was. And it was a bug that I caught. The first company I ever set up was called Kinky Ginkgo. The ginkgo tree is a tree that is cultivated all over the world, but it only grows native, it only grows wild in China. And when I looked at most of the expats around me, fundamentally civilized human beings who for some reason went utterly hedonistic in Hong Kong, there were a lot of parallels. So I had my own events business. I started with a partner alongside our day jobs. She lasted a couple of years and then said, it's too much doing this. So it was me on my own. We did all kinds of events, but the one that I was most known for was called Mega Jump, which was Hong Kong Time Out's event of the year for 2-3 years running. So Kinky Ginkgo was, it was just as a brand, it rocked. It was really personality led. It became almost cult-like. There was this huge following. We got sponsors. 95% of the people who helped me run Mega Junk were doing it for free because they just wanted to be part of the vibe, of the concept. They wanted to be associated with it. And it just did really well. But it failed. It failed because I didn't put the business side of it to match the brand. I got to a stage where I was a few weeks pregnant, standing on the top of this top deck of a boat with 500 people chanting at me, asking me to jump into the water like I did, do my top deck dive every year. And I realized I couldn't anymore, but I hadn't put succession planning in place. There was no one else. I got to the stage where the events were so popular, I was getting copycats, but those copycats were dangerous, doing dangerous things that could threaten people's lives. And I couldn't risk that, but I didn't have the legal protection in place. I didn't have the trademarking. I didn't have anything else that could reduce my exposure to that type of risk. And it all became too hard. So I stopped, and I kind of regret it, but I learned the lessons from it. Feeling a bit burnt, I then decided that I still needed something of my own that wasn't being employed by a company. I decided I was going to be an adventure travel journalist, right? Because you take stuff that you love and you make a business out of it. I love travel, I love diving, I'm an instructor, that's what I'm going to do. And the big painful lesson that I learned about this is you're always beholden to someone, right? I didn't like to be beholden to an editor any more than an employer. And actually, when you take something that is special to you, that is fun, you take that kind of hobby that you love and you try and turn it into a business, there is a real risk that you take the fun out of it and you stop enjoying it. It can be done, definitely. I didn't manage it. It's something you need to be careful of. But there are lessons kind of that I learned in a different way. There's some fun things, me in Mongolia doing adventure travel and various things. So then I moved on to my next entity, which was a marine conservation charity called the Hong Kong Shark Foundation. As I said, I don't like taking no for an answer. So when you've got a group of white expats who decide that they're going to take the Hong Kong government on and they're going to lobby local Hong Kong Chinese people about eating shark's fin, which is a huge kind of, deeply embedded cultural practice, it didn't go down so well. But we always had a vision that it would eventually be a grassroots charity, that it would have a local following and it would be uptaken and championed by locals. And that's exactly what did happen. We used all of my branding expertise, all of my events expertise, and we put the brand to play in that. This is where, for me, everything really started gelling. But we also used that brand to start putting the business process in place. We used it to help us with attracting investment, corporate backers, sponsors, the people that would help us raise that game and keep it going. Over 10 years later, Hong Kong Shark Foundation is still going. It's still doing well. They're still talking in schools. They're still out there. And shark fin consumption, is still going down. Hong Kong's still the World Trade Center. It's not going to change anytime soon, but we're making progress. And for me, Hong Kong Shark Foundation was really where I started to feel how looking at branding across the whole business, how it really started to help with small businesses too, taking everything I knew from the big agency stuff, applying it into a small perspective and going, do you know what? This works. And in the process of doing that, I realized that actually most small businesses, most charities, most startups, they can't afford a me. They can't afford to go to strategic, professional, international branding agencies and say, hey, I'm getting my brand up and going, what do I need to do? They just can't afford it. So I left and I decided that I was going to go independent and I was going to level the playing field so that I could help small businesses get access to all the strategic brand support they need in the same way that big businesses would. So that's me. That's kind of why I'm here. That's why the Purposeful Project invited me as part of my agency years in Hong Kong. When I went independent, the first kind of corporate contract that I got was actually with Simon Squibb from the Purposeful Project. He had an agency Fluid at the time. He needed it upskilling. He needed it repositioning. He needed to elevate it from a design agency to a branding agency. He needed to attract bigger, better value clients. He needed culture development. He needed awards to be won. He needed that product to look as shiny as it could so that another bigger agency would buy it. And that was my remit. And that's how we started working together. probably knocking on for 15 years ago. And here we are still. It works, I promise. So on to today. The three things that I want to talk about in terms of what it is, why you need to care about it, and how you should approach doing it. The industry that I work in is pretty confusing for a lot of people. It's full of jargon, there's a lot out there on the internet. It's very easy to just be a bit overwhelmed by it. And there's a lot of myths with it as well. The first one, the what myth, I often hear from small businesses that, branding, it's a design thing, right? It's the logos and identities and all of that. It is that, but it's more than that. Sometimes I get, well, it's a marketing thing. It's about marketing, right? It is that. But spoiler alert, it is about more than that, much more than that. Let me take you with me on an ideal customer journey. Just bear with me a second. If you look at the very bottom of the screen, next to the little Christmas tree popping up, there is a yellow car. I am in that car. Now, let's just say that I am making up a new low alcohol beer, for example. Okay, and you hear about that beer. Maybe your friend tells you about it. Maybe you've seen a Facebook ad. You've seen some product placement. Maybe you've read something about it, whatever it is, but you become aware of it, right? And at that point, like, my car door is open and I'm like, come on in, get in the car with me. Come on this journey. Now, depending on what you've seen and what you've heard, you're either going to consider my proposition and go, do you know what? Is that for me? Do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I like the sound of it? Do I like the look of it? Does it feel right? Has it got something that I need? And if it is, and you go through that consideration process with me in the car, you're going to go, do you know what? Yeah, you're going to move to commitment. I'm going to try it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to put my hard-earned cash. I'm going to buy that thing. I'm going to give it a go. It sounds great. If that works, if that promise and all of the expectations that I have set, if they're delivered by the actual product, we move into a process where you start to become loyal. You are retained as a customer. You think, do you know what? This is good. I like the taste of it. I like the price. It's easy for me to buy. I like the look of it. It's good. It does all the things, right? I like the feel of it. I like what it represents. I'm going to buy it again and again. And as that process goes on, maybe there's a new product, maybe there's a promotion, whatever it is, as you stay in the car with that brand, you move up the journey to the kind of all singing, all dancing advocacy, where suddenly it's not just the relationship between you and that product, but you're shouting out about it. You're telling everybody about it. You're sharing it on your Facebook. You're buying it with people's birthday presents, right? You are out there promoting that brand for them. You are an advocate. So that is your ideal customer journey, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, those are the broad stages that you want to take someone through. You've got to try and keep them in the car throughout the journey. And at any point in that journey, we could stop you, wind down the window, talk to the passenger and say, hey, how do you feel about this? What do you think about it? And their answer that says, oh, it makes me feel like this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Their answer, that's your brand. Okay. So that's what's so tricky. If you imagine your brain like a little flag post, like the logo and all of that stuff, they're just triggers to kind of wiggle that flag post that triggers a set of associations in here, right? It's everything you think about a brand, everything you feel about a brand, all of that together, that is what the brand is. And the terrifying thing about that is you don't own it because it lives in someone else's brain, in their hearts and in their minds, right? So you can't own your own brand because what it is in someone else's body. You don't control it. The most you can do is manage it and influence it as best you can. And that's what branding is all about. That's that process, right? It's that process of managing the perception of what your brand is. Yeah. So that's why, as you're going throughout the journey, you hear this quote. This is a really good quote. Actually, you often hear brands talking about and stories and branding being about storytelling. As you're going through that journey, there are all those different touch points. And everything that happens at those touch points needs to be consistent. It needs to tell a consistent story. Because if it doesn't, there's too many reasons for me to just get out of the car. If what you've said and what you've promised don't match up, I'm just going to get out the car. I'm done. And you're not going to get me to that halcyon destination of being a brand advocate, right? Of championing your brand. So the tricky thing is that's what the brand is. Now, strategic branding understands this. Strategic branding is about looking at your whole business then, not just your marketing side, but your whole business, saying everything that I am doing, everything that I am saying in every aspect of my business is going to influence the perceptions of what people think about me. So yeah, it's the offer. It's what I'm doing, what I'm selling, my product, my service, whatever it is, whatever my proposition is, what it does, the value it brings to people is a huge part of it. What I say about it, how I talk about it, the words, the language, the messaging that I use, what it looks like as well, that kind of the visual identity, the brand, the logo, all the things that the colors, the graphics that you think of with branding. The assets, the digital ones, yeah, your website, your apps, your social media channels, and so on. But the physical ones as well, right? The uniforms, the brochures, if you've got a livery van or whatever, the environments that you drive around with, if you've got a mobile coffee van or whatever. Do you have an office space? There's no point looking really slick online if someone turns up and you're in a really pokey looking office with paint peeling off the walls, right? It's all got to be consistent. And your visibility, all the marketing stuff that you talk about, your PR, your advertising, your content strategy, your communications, everything that you do to raise awareness, the affiliates you work with, the influencers, everything that you're doing to get your brand kind of out there needs to be consistent. You can't say one thing and they say something else, or I'm out of the car, right? And then the operations, look at the lesson I learned with Pinky Income. I didn't put the structure in place. When I came to people started saying to me, can I buy the business? I didn't have a database. I had an Excel spreadsheet. It wasn't qualified. It didn't fit GDPR. I couldn't do that, right? I didn't have trademarking in place, right? I couldn't have stuff to sell. I just had something that people wanted to buy, but I couldn't actually sell it. Kicking myself now, clearly. But also the other side of your operations people don't think of is actual process. Don't have a brand where you talk about it's really easy when you've got a really complicated inquiry form that you've got to jump through. Don't have a brand where you talk about friendliness or accessibility when you've got a bulldog of an accounts team or a really inflexible kind of billing structure or whatever. You have to look at every single part of your business and say, is this telling the same story? Get to quality control. Making a promise, fab. Are you delivering it? Have you actually got the structure in place to check things, right? And this doesn't have to be massive. There are survey monkeys, there's social media metrics. There's a whole heap of things now that you can do yourself to check. Is the message that I'm putting out there being well received? You can look at your sales. You can look at your conversion rates. You can look at things. Is this working? And if it's not working, why is it not working? Where are people getting out of the car? Get them back in the car as quickly as possible. This is one of the areas that startups don't think about. But actually, it's so much more important to keep customers because the cost of getting new ones is way more expensive than the cost of keeping the ones you've got. And that's not just about customers. Look at your relationships across the board, your investors, your partners, your backers, your staff, your suppliers, everybody, right? Do they all have a really clear understanding of what you're trying to do? Because they can be advocates too. And if they are responsible for helping you deliver what you're delivering, they've got to get it as well. It's every single part of your business. And that's why I say, for startups, your brand strategy and your business strategy, they're not exactly the same, but they are inextricably linked, right? Without one, the other just doesn't exist, right? And I know that you don't have a sales team and you don't have an ops team and you don't have a head of brand to pull it all together. It's you. So you have to pull it all together. And it's really important that you do that because, well, I'll tell you why, but anyway, that's what strategic branding is. So hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm rattling at pace because I want to go through the questions that everybody has. But I will have a quick check on the chat because if anybody is struggling with with pace, then let me know. I work at pace. I think a lot of startups appreciate that. Right, the next thing, why? So as I said, you don't have a sales team, you don't have a marketing team, you don't have an ops manager, you don't have a head of brand, you've got you. It's really easy to think, well, do you know what? Big picture perspective, great, but that's a big business thing. It's not, and I will tell you why. It really doesn't matter what size of business you've got, because if you have a strong brand, it will benefit your business, full stop, regardless of size or sector. Your brand will help people recognize you. It will build trust and legitimacy in there. You know, are you going to go for the guys that look professional and on it with a personality that's slick and consistent, or are you going to go for the guys who look like a dog's dinner? No, you're not, right? It's going to help you attract customers, that appeal that comes from that like-minded element. And it lets you build a connection with people that is emotional and not rational. So you're not just competing on things like price. When you start competing with a relationship, it's really hard for someone else to take that on. And it builds you a different type of competitive advantage that you can own. And with that also means a strong brand will help you drive revenue. So it affects your pricing, it affects your appeal, it affects your conversion rates, it affects your repeat purchase, all the way through that customer journey. Your brand helps keep people in the car. If you do it strategically, you keep people in the car. So branding should really be seen as a revenue center, not a cost center. Okay, it's really important. And that's why you often see, this is probably, I think, Steve Forbes's quote is probably one of the most quoted quotes about branding that there is. Your brand is the single most important investment you can make in your business. No surprise that I'm going to back that up, is it? Especially given what I do for a living. But there you go. What might be a surprise is you can build a brand, right? You can go, do you know what? I'm going to crank out a logo, get my website. I'm just going to get out there. I'm going to start working. I'm going to do really well. And I'm going to organically just grow my brand over time. That's great. You might start off well. The likelihood is that you're going to hit some hurdles because, hey, that's business. That's how it works. If you have put a little bit of thought up front before you start spending money and going down the line or committing time and effort to putting your business in a particular direction, putting a bit of thought up front can save you a whole heap of hassle later on. Brands only become strong and sustainable if they're built on solid foundations, if you've thought about them first. So first of all, the process that you go through when you're putting a brand strategy together, the things that you do, which I'll talk about in a minute, will help you clarify your business case. So just validate your concept, first of all, refining your value proposition, your competitive position, and that revenue potential. Thinking about your brand and your business together helps you craft a much better opportunity, that kind of holy grail right from the start. It also reduces overwhelm. So once you've got it together, and it doesn't need to be like a 50-page PowerPoint proposal or something like that, right? You can have your brand on a page. I'll show you that in a minute. One page, it's all you need. But you've then got that and you keep coming back to it. When you're a startup, the rate of change is massive, right? There's opportunities coming left, right, and center. You started off thinking, this is what I'm going to do. And then someone throws a curveball and it's a new shiny thing. And you're like, oh, maybe I should do that. Or someone gives you a new opportunity. You're starting off digitally and then someone offers you a retail pop-up and you're like, oh, do I do it? Do I not? If you have thought about things beforehand, and if you've got that strategy in place, suddenly you've got a framework to help you manage that decision-making process. Every opportunity that comes up, you go back to that framework. Does it fit? Because if your brand strategy and your business strategy are aligned, does it fit? If it fits, let me see if I can make it work. If it doesn't, if it's not going to help me achieve that, just don't waste any more time and effort on it. Move on. Clarity, direction, focus. Main things the strategy gives you. It also saves you time and money. So you're going out there, you've got someone doing creative concepts for something, you don't like the work that's coming back, it's because the brief isn't good enough. It's not thought through well enough a lot of the time. Or you're crowdsourcing because you can't afford to go one-to-one with a professional designer. So the better quality brief you have, if you're throwing it out there on Fiverr or 99 Designs or something like that, having something that's really well thought through and is absolutely on target, you are a lot more likely to get decent quality work back from the beginning that resonates and works. You're going to attract the right people to your brand, the right partners, the right people who want to work with you. And you're not going to keep reinventing the wheel. So you're saving time and money at the same time. It's very important. And then there's the kind of, I talked about emotional connection before, just that process of looking at your target audience, who they are, what they want, how you're going to resonate with them, how you're going to capture that little bit of that heart, how you're going to build a relationship with them. Having that in place means that you kind of build relationships on shared value and a common purpose, right? And friends, it's like a friendship, you know, you stick with friends when they get tough. So not only does this attract people to you, it gets them into the car, but it keeps them in the car with you for the whole journey. Just like with a friend, you have an argument, but you know what? It's more than that, isn't it? It's more than the argument because you have a relationship that transcends that. So you stay in the car with them. And that's the same. If you have a brand and you have a shared sense of values and a shared sense of purpose, if they drop the ball one time, your product doesn't arrive, customer service was a bit wonky, you stick with them. You'll give them the leeway to get over that bump in the road with them. You won't do that without some kind of emotional connection. You won't do that if you're building a brand based purely on rational characteristics like price and things like that, right? You need to tap in to that emotional connection. And that's what the strategic process lets you do. And it helps you manage the marbles, right? It's just you. You don't have all of these people. So as you're trying to do all of the things and wear all of the hats, and you're trying to run the business and win the business and market the business and deliver the business and do all of that, it's really easy to drop the ball. It's really easy for things to start going in different directions. And then you outsource. And are they on track or are they not? Do they get the brand? Are they showing, you know, you've got a partner in? Are they doing, you know, helping your baby grow up the way you want it to? Are they delivering the brand the way you want it to? You've got a new backer, you've got a new customer. It really easily starts to look messy and unprofessional and disconnected without that strategy, without that framework that keeps saying, wait a minute, what am I doing? What am I trying to achieve? What's important to me? What's the value in this? Let's keep this on track, right? That's more than anything else, the biggest value I think that a brand strategy gets you. It helps you, puts the framework in place for your business to stay on track. It sets that direction and it keeps you in the car as long as the other people with it. So the reality of this is, even though you don't have all of the team and all of the people, and even though it might sound like a lot of work to put your whole strategy together, you still need to do it, really. Sorry, the job still needs doing. You can scale how far you go into it and how much you can do. It depends a little bit on what your own skill set is. You might come from a marketing background, you might have that experience, you might not. You might be good with words, you might be good with graphics, you might not. You might be good at understanding kind of business markets and metrics, you might not. You might need a bit of help along the way, but it still needs to be done. If you want to build a business and not a hobby, if you want to build something that is sustainable over time and is going to work for you, you need to put a bit of thought up front into it, into your brand alongside your business. So this is my last bit. I have no idea where I'm up to on timing. I will check. Oh gosh, half an hour in. Right, I'll be quick on the last bit. So this is the how, the myth bit of it's hard work. It's really hard work. I can't do it. Yes, you can. I've just covered some of that. I'd like to say it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, but I won't fit a round peg into a square hole. And I'm pretty sure you're all capable of remembering 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes like this. 1 page. Your strategy can fit on 1 page, okay? That's all you need. You need to be able to have these 8 essential things. 1, A simple way of describing what makes you special and different. Otherwise, why bother, right? If you're not offering anything special and different, why bother? A simple way of describing what you do so that people understand, right? Don't do that ridiculous thing where you create a niche for yourself. You know, I'm a fusion, blah, blah, blah. If you're a chef or a food mixologist, I had someone tell me, what? They were a fusion chef. I understand a fusion chef. I don't understand a food mixologist. Don't do it. If you're a hairdresser who goes to people's homes and specializes in color, be a mobile hair colorist. Just tell people what you do. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to work. I need to understand, am I comparing apples with apples, oranges with oranges? How does that work? You need your purpose, vision, and mission. All the things I spoke about at the beginning, about the importance of that emotional connection, this is kind of where that comes in. Your purpose, that motivation. Why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what makes you get out of bed and do this every day? What is driving you? Because that motivation inspires other people. It makes them wave their hand and say, I want to be a part of that. That vision, if you fulfill that purpose, what does the world look like? You need to be able to articulate that, because if you don't know where you want to go, how are you going to get there? Right? There is no, your vision is your destination. And your mission, that's how you get there. That's how you travel that journey, right? How you're going to fulfill that purpose, how you're going to achieve that vision. That's what your mission is for. Your values, that's what's important for you along the way, right? They are the principles that define why you run your business the way you run it, right? Please don't talk about things like professionalism and quality. It's boring, it's dull. And if you're not doing that anyway, you shouldn't really be in business, let's be fair. Unless maybe you're in building and then professionalism could be differentiated. But, you know, think about important stuff. What is genuinely important to you? Because that's what makes the difference. That's what's going to attract people to want to be part of this. What you stand for, what you believe in, that's what people are going to go, yeah, I agree with that. I'm in with that, right? That's what you want to do. Your personality, yeah, this is the things everyone thinks about with branding. Your kind of look, feel, character, style, tone of voice. Of course, you need to have all of that, and you need to have it written down so that everybody you deal with gets it. And then the bit in black that startups forget time and again are the metrics, right? The performance. If you have all of this as a story, how do you know it's working? How do you know it's resonating? Right? How do you know that you're saying what people want to hear? How do you know you're getting the reach that you want, the reputation that you want, and the revenue that you want? What metrics are you going to put in place? And as I said, you know, this isn't about getting a market research agency to do a customer service study. You can use SurveyMonkey, you can use various kind of social media metrics, you can use Google Analytics, you can look at your sales figures. There's a whole range of things, but put time in your diary to do it. And link it to your brand, not just your business. If I'm saying ease, how is that translating? How do I know that that is being delivered? And so on. The other thing to think of, remember the brain, remember that your brand is bigger than you. Please don't try and fill in that brand on a page just by yourself. Don't sit there and go, right, I can do this, and pour everything out of your brain onto a page, right? Your brand lives in other people's heads. So check outside in as well as inside out. You know, if there's people you're working with, talk to them, do your homework. Externally, sense check, find out what people need. Don't assume. I always say that, ask, don't assume. Do your homework, do some research, make sure that you know you're on track. And when you're doing that research, what are you looking for? What are you asking? Well, yeah, all the audience stuff, clearly, what they want, what they need, who they are, their behaviors, how you're going to find them, how you're going to serve that, all of that. But don't forget your business, because we're linking these two things together, right? What your business does, why it exists, what's the end game, right? Look at me with KG. What's the exit strategy? What do you want out of it? Who are the people who are involved in it? What do they bring to the party? What's the ambition? How does that link? What are the strategic goals of the business? How does the brand link to that? And then your market, right? What's going on with that? Is it busy? Is it cluttered? Is it wide open? What's the opportunity? Is it stagnant? Is it something that is a very dynamic market? What does your competitive position look like? Who is out there? What are they good at? What are they not good at? How do you compare? right? These are all the things you want to be thinking about. Are there trends going on? Are there changes in the legal situation or the regulatory situation that's going to impact you? Just knowing that you need to have a little think about this stuff now can save you a whole heap of angst later on down the line. So just, you don't need to overthink it. You don't need to spend months on this stuff, but you do need to think about it. And ideally, think about it with someone else. So it's not just in here. When you've done all of that, then you can sit back, you get that page and you start filling it in, right? You start filling in those 8 essentials. And together, that is your brand story, your storyboard on a page. And before you go wild with it and start giving it to everybody and taking it out there and using it to do all your messaging and your identity, just sense check. Is it true? When I look at this, like now I've done it, can I just go back for a minute and go, is this true? Are the claims that I'm making claims that I can credibly deliver, right? Is it valued? Do people want it? There's no point me selling you a ton of bells and whistles if you only want bells or you don't want either, right? Do I know that people actually want this? Do I need to go and sense check or ask around some more? Now that I've done my thinking and I've put something together, do I need to kind of go, hey, does this work for you? Is this what you were thinking? Do you like the sound of it? You know, before you invest time and money in it, sense check it. Do people care? Do they want it? Is it different from what else is out there? Now, everything you do won't be different, but it might not be what you do. I mean, there's plenty of other brand strategists out there in the world. I am certainly not the only one, right? But it might be the way that you do it or who you do it for, right? There aren't many who specialize in working with startups and SMEs, right? There aren't many who go out of their way to try and take all this concept and jargon and make it into stuff that people can easily understand and run with, to try and make it something that we can do something with in the real world, as opposed to a 100-page report that's going to sit in someone's inbox, right? It's not always what you do, but how you do it that might be where it's different, but you need to have a point of difference. And then finally, and this is another big black hole for a lot of startups, we are so busy being excited about our new venture and getting something up on the ground that we're not thinking about how long it's going to last and what we want out of the end game. Sometimes it feels a bit wrong to be looking at an exit strategy for something that you're just starting. But just if you have that end game in mind, you can work towards it, right? There is no point you setting up a business and naming it after yourself if 6 months down the line you want to take in a partner and that doesn't work, right? You need to think ahead for that. If you think that you might be changing your business model at some point from being purely online to being, you know, bricks and mortar as well, then you need to have factored that in to your strategy. Make sure your strategy has the fit for now so that the story is coherent now, but also the flex for what you don't know yet, for what might happen, for the pivots that might come, for what comes around the corner, for the curveballs, for the way that just that's what happens in startups. That's the way that the business works. And once you've done that, once you've sense checked your stuff, you're ready to go, right? So your quick recap, your brand basically is your business, right? They're not exactly the same thing, but for a startup's purpose, they are interchangeable. They are inextricably linked. One doesn't exist without the other. Secondly, taking a big picture perspective, looking at the whole business, not just design, not just marketing, but looking at the whole business will benefit you in the long run. Benefit you in the short run, frankly, but it will really benefit you in the long run. And simple is okay, right? It doesn't have to be really hard, really complicated, massively detailed. But you do need to know that you need to think about those things. You don't need to build up an ideal client profile that's 2 pages long and talks about what someone needs for breakfast, right? But what you do know is you need to think about what's relevant about their life, about their character, about them that is relevant to your brand and how that connection works, right? Focus on what's important and move on. As long as you think things through and as long as it's not just you, but you're taking out the external perspective as well, you're good to go. That's me. So I am just going to have a look. I've got chat and I've got Q&A. Right, I've got sponsorship is something I want to start looking into, but where do you start? I'm a small swim school, but I feel my social media contract is strong. Is it too soon to be looking at sponsorship? It's never too soon to be looking at sponsorship. It's purely about the value and about finding, the right person that's in there. This is where sometimes your vision can be really important. That emotional stuff, you're selling an idea sometimes more than you're selling a business. And if someone buys that idea, that's what they're putting their money behind, not the kind of the tangibles of it. You've got some social media metrics. You can be able to show growth and you can sell the growth. If you've grown, 20% in the last 6 months, that 20% might still be relatively low numbers, but you'll be able to, if I maintain that growth, in 12 months time, we're going to be looking at this. If I exceed it, we're going to be looking at that. So absolutely, make sure you spend the time, vision, mission, values, sell the story, sell the purpose, sell what you're trying to achieve, and capture someone's input, their heart there, and then they will be there to back you. Because if they want to back you, they're not going to look at, they don't need it to be big now. They're backing an idea, they're backing growth, they're backing potential. With social media, I'm conflicted. Sorry, Richard, I hope that helped. Annie, with social media, I'm conflicted in how I present my business. I want people to love the products like I do and think they're cool, but I'm aware people also buy into the people behind the business. So do I keep it slick and cool with my posts or show who I really am? An ex-BBC journo, a mum of 2, just trying to make some income out of a passion. Right, well, the bit where the flag for me there is just trying to make some income out of passion. Just ditch the word just, because you're doing yourself down from a start. You're not just doing anything, right? The important thing to remember with goals, your personal goal, I want to make some income out of a passion. Great, that's fine. That's your personal goal. Other people don't care about that, right? But there will be more than that about why you're passionate about it or what it is that you are trying to do with that you can absolutely, that is still authentic to you. People buy people, not products. That's a standard thing, but they buy perceptions as well. Because your brand is bigger than you, yes, if it's just you and you are the face of your brand and you are the person behind it, by all means, you must show up and you must show yourself the same way that I do here, right? That's really important. But you just have to be aware that your business and you are not one and the same thing, right? So by all means, you back it up, you support it, you're there, you're visible, but you're not talking about, hey, support me because I want to make some money here. No one's going to do that. I don't know what your business is, but you want to be selling the vision of that. That's what kind of comes in here. Now then, where can I scroll down? Right, hi, Katie, I am a web developer and investor. If you have a strong idea of your brand, but you end up with customers in a different demographic to your brand, do you mold your brand to fit to them by listening to the feedback, or do you keep strong? Even if the feedback is not something you believe in and makes you unhappy, but makes you money. I think you've pretty much answered your own question there, Katie. Why are you doing what you're doing? What I've just said to Annie, balance that personal goal. Are you in this because you want to make some money, get out of it? And if your exit strategy is about building a business that you can sell, you might need to take a hit. You might need to do something that you're not 100% passionate about if you can successfully build that business, sell it, and go on. All right. With most startups, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to have the motivation to keep it going. You're not going to put the energy into it. It's not going to have the authenticity that you want. And it's not going to work. So I would try and find the audience that does care more than anything else. Because if it's making you unhappy, don't do it. If it's something making you happy, go and get a job, right? That's not why we work for ourselves. We've got to take fulfillment out of what we're doing. And that comes across. Right, my wife is a woman of colour. Hi, Adam. Her brand is all about loving your heritage and empowering other women of colour to feel self-confident in their skin. Great. I'm a white man, which historically is a juxtaposition to that. Obviously, the world has moved on. I worry my involvement in the customer-facing role sometimes causes a friction that otherwise wouldn't be there. Talk about it. Talk about it. How can I possibly understand the hardship our target market has endured? So how do I seamlessly, integrate myself into the brand personality? The brand personality is the brand, right? You are a person working within it. It depends what that personality is. If you feel it's something that as an individual you can't fit with, that's a different question. You know, should you be working with it at all? And maybe you should be something behind the scenes, right? But I wouldn't worry about the way things look as long as the authenticity is there, right? Talk with your wife, talk about it, you know, show that you understand, have that conversation. You might find that you actually move the brand on in a way that you weren't anticipating before. Right, I can't copy paste my questions from chat. Sorry, Austin, I'm going to have a look. Marketing branding books you recommend? No, sorry, only because I don't read them. Isn't that awful? My husband is big on podcasts. He often shares things with me. I'll see if I can share something maybe on a comment afterwards as to what he's come through. My pace is such, working with startups and SMEs, I'm learning on the job all the time, and I've been doing it for such a long time. Harry, I need a sizable business investment. Sorry, where are we up to? Are we about to run out? Guys, have we gone over? Can I just have a look and see if I'm scrolling down to the bottom? Talia, am I still okay going on, or do you want me to stop?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Maybe like 5 more minutes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting excited. So many questions. It's wonderful. Right, Oliver, I am brand new to branding. Is it worth focusing on establishing a clear branding model first before getting customers and sales, or do these things work in parallel? Right, thanks for a very informative seminar. You are welcome. I would like to say that you get all your strategy up front. I would like to say that, of course I would. The reality of it is that, you know, we need money coming in, particularly self-employed individuals. There is a bit of both. I run programs where I do full brand positionings with people within a couple of weeks. It's doable. I know if you're doing it by yourself, it's harder. I definitely have a bash at getting as much done as possible by yourself, at least going through, thinking everything and trying to get the thought process in place. You might craft the wording later on. You might decide that the way you've written your vision statement now, you know, 6 months time, actually now I think that, or, you know, this is what I thought were my values, but actually now that I'm doing it and someone's mentioned that this is really important to me, yeah, you're right, that is really important to me. I hadn't seen it before. It will evolve, but if you can try and at least put the thinking in, then the word crafting will chop and change, you know, as it will naturally evolve, especially over the first 6 to 12 months. Once you are up and running and your brand is starting to get established, you don't change your brand strategy because it's aligned with that business strategy. So it should be keeping you going for 2 to 3 years, at least for a startup, right? That's it, but it will evolve the first 12 months as it beds down and you find your way through it. It is a bit of both. Any tips on branding when targeting professional companies? Being formal, clean, clear cut are some of my expectations. It depends. I mean, I do B2B. How formal am I? I'm not very formal. I think being authentic is important. Being able to evidence kind of what you're claiming, whatever it is that you are delivering, being able to prove that there is results. That's what's, you know, in terms of your messaging and how you structure your messaging, making sure that you can evidence value, communicate value and evidence results is always really, really important when you're looking at professional companies. But yes, definitely consistency is across the board, and don't jump into the trap of describing yourself always as professional or having that as a brand value, because if you're dealing with professional services, that's table stakes. They will expect that as a bare minimum. It won't differentiate you. Right, okay, I think I've gone through most. Oh, last one, Jacob. What software have you found to be the most effective way to present your business and brand strategy? To who? Who are you presenting it to? This is on PowerPoint. You know, I work on PowerPoint. There is something I was looking at recently, Extensio, which is a great platform with lots of templates, an ideal client template, this template, that template, different kind of strategies and brands on a page type templates. You don't need to follow mine, clearly. That's quite good. It's who you're sharing it with. If you are looking at creative outsourcing, you want something really simple. It's a simple one-page Word document. It's a PDF, and it's only the things. It's the brand story. You don't need the journey that or the research you've done to get there. But just whatever works. Sometimes it's just you and a chat. But yeah, PowerPoints always work for me. Okay. Is it right to play with people's emotions? No, it's not. Let me explain. I have a factory in Pakistan that makes cotton bed sheets, and I want to show that when the item is brought, goes to them and uplift their life. Is that playing with someone's emotions? I think branding is about kind of capturing people's emotions, absolutely. And it's about tapping into them and resonating with them. You shouldn't be messing people about necessarily. You certainly shouldn't be promising something and then not delivering it. Getting people to expect something and then not giving them that's not generally a route that I would advise. There's playful branding where people kind of, tweak and messaging, but it's often tongue in cheek, or it's more we do it together rather than me messing about with your emotions. Nobody likes that. You wouldn't want to spend time with someone who did that to you, and you certainly wouldn't want to spend time with a brand who did that to you either. Okay, I think I'm done.